The world has been pointing its fingers at video games for the increase in violence for decades. But how much of that is justified and backed up by facts and tests done by appropriate authorities? This started back in 1976 when a game called Death Race caused outrage, which is basically some harmless pixels running over other pixels and was visually similar to the famous tennis game Pong, which was released in 1972 and was called insidious, morbid, gross, and sick by the New York Times in 1976. And the evidence presented was that nearly 9,000 pedestrians were killed that year, which is like saying school shooters wore socks, so we have to ban socks. So how about we look at the facts, which are that countries with massive gaming communities and industries like Japan and South Korea spend more per capita on video games than a country like United States. Granted, modern games have more detail and gore, but the research done does not reveal any connection between violence and video games. The research papers who come most close to this claim are that video games temporarily increase aggression and aggressive thoughts. However, the tests performed in such research papers do not correctly justify their definition and are not what an average person would call acts of aggression. And a few studies even just mentioned that people who played these games were more likely to put hot sauce in your food. And even if these studies tested the real world acts of aggression, the change in behavior measured was just 2% on average. People playing contact sports show more aggression than that. A meta-analysis studies that combine the results of individual studies into one larger analysis was done in 2015 by the American Psychological Association with a task force of 10 members who had nothing vested in the gaming industries, making them unbiased. And their conclusion was violent video games can increase aggression but not violence nor crime. Take it from me, I've been playing violent video games for ages, and I'm not violent. Most I'll do is put some hot sauce on your food when you're not looking. So, to the real question, how come the gaming community has been targeted for all these decades? The thing is, blaming games is much easier than tackling societal problems that actually impact violence and crime. Things like educational and employment disparities, stigma against mental health treatment, and access to guns and weaponry.